All right. Hey, what's going on, everyone? We're going to have a conversation about mindfulness. We've been talking about mindfulness over the past couple of days. And today, I want to give you a really, hopefully, an in depth rundown on truly how we can use like 4 major tips or keys to learn how to master mindfulness. I think before I get started, just understanding that mindfulness is a skill that we develop over time. And we're in this process of developing. So, having a good foundation sets us up for success in being successful people who are practicing mindfulness or a successful meditator or whatever your goals are specifically. So yeah, let's dive in. So we live in a really busy, noisy world. We spend so much time trying to decipher all of the different messages that we're receiving. And the thing is, we do this so that we can understand more of who we are, what we need, and really how to live a more meaningful life. So we find ourselves looking everywhere but within to find the answers to life's deepest questions. So when we're really little, we turn to our parents, our caretakers, siblings, and other people in our lives to guide us. And whether they know it or not, they show us what it means to be human, and what it means to interact with others in this world and how to make the most out of this human experience. But if you're anything like me, you might have found that even though you had lots of people showing you how to kind of make the most out of this life, you still felt pretty clueless when it was time for you to be an adult and function on your own. It really is kind of confusing that we could spend all of this time in our bodies and not really even understand what our true nature is. We'll turn to people around us to tell us who we are, and society and those around us will gladly give you their opinions on what they think that you should be. But as it turns out, there are like so many unspoken rules that we have to follow in order to fit into this larger society. So I really just found myself struggling to make sense of the world and who I was. And even though I felt like I should have known all of these things, I didn't really even know how to begin the process of understanding myself. Even though there were tons of resources around me, none of them seemed to give me the answers that I really needed. Another thing is that, like, discovering and accepting myself as a queer person and as a trans person, it was so instrumental in me really discovering myself and finding myself. But even after I did that, I found that I was still kind of lost. I wasn't really sure what to do. At the deepest core of my being, I really didn't know who I was beyond all that stuff. So the thing is if we're going to find out our true identity, we're going to have to change the way that we think about the world. The world has an agenda, right? It's not like malicious or anything, but everyone around us like wants us to be normal. They want us to fit into the world and live a successful life according to their standards. But the question that I want to ask is like, what if things could be different? What if we're not supposed to blend in and assimilate into popular culture? What if we're meant to do things a little bit differently? So removing the noise of the world and really starting to quiet ourselves down puts us on a fast track to authentic self-discovery. Stillness and quieting the mind allows you to find yourself. And when a person is able to discover their true nature, they can actually step into their authenticity. And this is why mindfulness is so important. I believe that mindfulness and other meditative practices that encourage stillness and quieting the mind are really useful keys to help us unlock our true nature. So the very basis of our being is a soul. That's our true nature. We think that we are a person who possesses a soul, like we're a body that possesses a soul, but the reality is, the truth is that we are a soul that possesses a body. That framework shift really kind of opened things up for me. We sometimes get too disconnected and kind of disillusioned actually with the physical world so much that we forget our true nature. But as we start to spend time in silence, we're able to reflect on our true identity. And then we start to discover, honestly, how deeply disconnected from ourselves we actually are. So, in order to find healing, we have to practice coming together and finding union within. The more that we practice mindfulness, the more that we find the parts of us that are in need of healing. And then after we discover those parts, then we can do the work that it takes to find them and integrate them, really find that wholeness altogether. So now, what exactly is mindfulness? So mindfulness is a practice of non-judgmental, present-focused awareness. So in order to practice mindfulness, we have to be fully enveloped in this present moment. There are 4 keys that you need to keep in mind, and these are going to help you really understand what it really means to practice mindfulness and how to be successful at it. So the first thing, whenever we begin a mindfulness practice, we have to understand why we're doing what we're doing. When we know why we're doing something, it tends to help put a little bit more emphasis on that practice. So we're practicing stillness and mindfulness in order to familiarize ourselves with our true nature. And this does require some practice and dedication and should be taken quite seriously. And even though we take this practice seriously, we're able to have a balance and have some fun with it, because after all, it's just a practice. So after we've set an intention for the practice, we can actually get into focusing our energy a bit better in the present moment. This is how we start every practice. So the next key to mindfulness is to pay attention, right? We just have to pay attention to something. Our attention is a very powerful aspect in our lives. Some of us think that we're bad at paying attention, but we're very good at paying attention to different things. Even as a person with ADHD, I know that I'm known for being easily distracted. But when I get focused on something that I'm interested in, the entire world just falls away because I'm so focused on that one thing. So it's about me learning how to kind of train my attention towards mindfulness. Okay, so our attention is a really powerful aspect of our lives. And the key, this is like a sub key to the main key of paying attention. But where your attention goes, your energy flows, or where your awareness goes, your energy flows. So you want to practice turning that attention and focusing it inward on our body, our emotions, and thoughts. And it's really important that there are tons of things that you can focus on in meditation. But for mindfulness specifically, we want to be turned inward. This is another side note that meditation is a big umbrella term for a bunch of different things, and mindfulness is just one aspect of meditation, or one brand of meditation, so to speak. Okay, so let me go over the first 2 first. So we have a purpose. We know our why. That's the first key. The second one is we're paying attention, right? We understand that where our attention goes, our energy flows. Number 3 is to be engaged in the present moment. So being in the present moment means that we are focused on the here and now. And this means we're not focusing our minds on anything that's going on in the past or in the future. So we're not rehearsing previous conversations. We're not thinking about past experiences. We're not focusing or planning ahead on what we're going to do after a meditation practice or what's going on next week. We are fully focused on the here and now. Another point that's important to I think that helps you conceptualize this idea, We want our energy to be in this present moment. We oftentimes will send our energy outside of our present moment, outside of our body, and we want to call that energy back to this space. And so that's why we're focusing our energy in the present moment. We're taking it from those other places and putting it here, because this is the only place that we can actually move from. Hope that makes sense. And the other thing is that as we're practicing mindfulness, what are we going to do with those distractions? So we might get distracted by random thoughts that come up. We might get like a song or something stuck in our heads that we haven't heard in years. And we might just be thinking about random stuff. And all these things are just little thoughts that are occurring in our minds. Someone left a comment on my YouTube channel, and it was really profound. And they shared how like when you think about your like salivatory glands, they salivate, they excrete saliva, right? But our brain, think of that as almost like a gland, and it's secreting thoughts all the time. So don't beat yourself up for this supernatural human thing that happens to every single person. And the point of mindfulness isn't to empty your mind or have no thoughts. It's just to be fully present with our thoughts and to observe those thoughts with a sense of non-judgment and quite a bit of compassion. And our last aspect of mindfulness is to practice non-judgment. Now, when it comes to mindfulness, non-judgment means being completely open and surrendering to the current experience. So this means that we're not concerned about exactly where the practice is going to take us. We are just present for the journey. So no matter how it decides to unfold. And non-judgment also looks like accepting emotions and feelings that arise during our practice. So sometimes we'll sit for mindfulness practice and we'll have some distressing or disturbing emotions, thoughts, images, physical sensations that sometimes can feel quite actually alarming. And if we do experience those, it's important for us to work on observing those experiences without judgment. Not having judgment means that we're not asking for our experience to change in any way. We're saying to this experience, yes, I am here with you. I'm not asking you to change for any reason, and I'm going to be fully present with you in this moment. So traditionally, mindfulness practice is one that's done while sitting in meditation. And I believe that these practices should be taken off of the meditation cushion and into the real world. We should be doing our best to live a truly mindful life. And if we can take a moment to observe ourselves and ask every single day, like, am I fully present in this experience? That would radically change so much. Because, like I mentioned earlier, we're living in this noisy world, and there's so many distractions, and we have this temptation to be doing 10 things at a time. And also we feel like there's not enough time to do all the things that need to be done. And there's so much like hustle culture, like you're always supposed to be doing. There's not a lot of time that's allotted for us to just like sit back and observe and rest and just be. So it just becomes really difficult for us to slow down in this way. But that's honestly one of the reasons why carving out time for mindfulness is super important. And to make sure that we're bringing mindfulness into our regular, everyday lives. The other thing is that when we slow down and quiet down, it allows for us to be in touch with our intuition, right? And the more we get in touch with our intuition, it allows us to start to be released from like our egoic sense of self, our identity that we've worked so hard to set up because we're humans, right? We understand that we can also be distracted by our sense of ego, but when we're more connected to our intuition, we know that we're more connected to like our soul nature. So I'm going to give a couple of examples of some simple ways that you can practice mindfulness throughout the day. So one of the first ones is just to make sure, like, you can just stop yourself throughout the day and turn inward and just ask yourself that simple question: am I fully present in this moment? You could set a timer on your phone that goes off every couple hours, maybe every day at lunchtime. And it just says, are you fully present? And that could be a little key or trigger for you to just remember to bring all your attention into this present moment. If you were feeling distracted or overwhelmed by things, like leaving that aside for a moment and just kind of coming back to the self. The next tip is, when you are having a conversation with someone, I want you to work on turning your attention inwards, right? And pay attention to what you're feeling as you're communicating to that person. This is helping you really remain present. The other thing that you can do is start to really like tune in to what they're saying. You're almost like listening to the energy that they're giving you through their words. You're not like, it's a mixture of listening to the words, but also feeling the words and seeing kind of like what you get from that, right? That this is also another tip that helps you just develop your intuition. But it is super helpful because it allows you to stay like present and grounded with that other person. You're really relating to this other person in a deep and meaningful way. So this also means that we're not in our heads during the conversation, right? We're not waiting with a reply to give that person. We're letting the person speak, and after they're done speaking, we're observing ourselves and just kind of sensing what that person might need in that moment. So this is one way to help you like radically transform your relationship with other people and just become better listeners. So this is helpful on many levels. The other thing is because everyone spends time doing chores during the day. So maybe the next time you do chores around the house, you use that you use that as a time to practice some more of your mindfulness skills. So, for example, you can wash the dishes mindfully. And I think the dishes is a good example just because there's so many sensations and sounds that are happening when you're doing that. So you go to do the dishes, right? You turn on the water, listen, like really listen to the sound that you hear. You're hearing obviously the water in the sink. You might be hearing people around the house. Just pay attention to those sounds. Like feel the sounds. You also want to pay attention to the textures that you're experiencing. So as the water is coming out of the faucet, you're sensing the temperature that's there, right? You're just feeling the water, feeling the wetness, and just noticing truly how it feels to touch your skin. You can feel the difference between what it feels like to touch just the water and to touch the soap. Be really present with those sensations. Excuse me. And you can also pay attention if there are this is also kind of gross, but if there are like textures of food or something that's in the sink as you're doing the dishes, those are great different sensations that you can tune into. And it also helps us to do that whole equanimity thing where we're trying to be balanced with all of our reactions. We're being non-judgmental and not evaluating different sensations as good or bad, which definitely takes some mastery over some time. But we can practice it with more minute sensations, like touching the gross things in the sink, and as opposed to like touching the water or something like that. Another example is to really be in your body whenever you're walking. I like to do this when I go outside and walk my dog. I don't remember who said this quote initially. Maybe it was Thich Nhat Hanh or something. I don't remember if that's how you pronounce his name. But he was I believe he was a Buddhist, an old Buddhist monk. Anyway, but the quote is, whenever you walk, walk as if your feet are kissing the earth. That shifts the way that you step. Okay, this is just kind of silly, but I was doing this one time and I was walking really fast and I was like, this is aggressive. Like, this wouldn't be like a good way. If I was like kissing someone, it'd be really weird and aggressive. I was just being so like forceful with all my steps. So like it forced me to slow down a little bit and be really cautious and like a little bit more gentle with each one of my steps. And it gave me enough space to be more aware of my body, like the mechanics of my body on every step. All I want you to do is to be more present with yourself. So try these different techniques and see how they work out for you. These practices are going to transform the way that you think, the way that you live your life, and hopefully, at the very least, helps you to feel more connected to yourself, more connected to other people, and more connected to nature, your environment, and the universe at large. So give these a shot and let me know how they go for you. If you are interested in working a little bit more closely with me in helping you process how to live a more mindful life, how to shut out some of the noise of the world so that you can really start to find yourself, your authentic self, then reach out to me for a free discovery session. I'm going to leave a link to that below, and we'll have a conversation about how I can help, and we'll move on from there. So thank you so much for showing up here today, and for sticking with me through the end. I will see you next time. All right. Peace and love. Adios.